I have this great esteemed panel sitting here today. We're really excited. Everybody's excited about charter schools, right? We're excited about the way that we can grow them and how we can replicate these great models. And so today we have an outstanding team up here on the stage. And so I'm going to ask you guys to take a moment to introduce yourselves and let the audience know some things about you.
I'm Melissa Gross-Arnold. I'm an attorney here in Florida, which is where we're speaking from today. I specialize in education law, and I also have a background in city, county, and local government law. So I represent charter schools across the state of Florida, and that's my area of specialty.
I'm Monica White. I'm from Idaho, and I started Elevate Academy, which is a 6th through 12th grade school for at-risk students. That is it is a trade school. So we have the kids master the trades and layer on the math, science, English, social studies, all the other stuff on top of those. Really work to find the kids' genius and help them get off in the world and do great things. And we open our 4th campus in August.
Good morning. My name is Scott Snick, and I'm the Executive Director for Franklin Academy Charter Schools. We're a charter school system here in South Florida. We have 6 campuses, 4 in Broward County and 2 in Palm Beach County, and we serve just under 9,000 students. And we very proud to say that we are the first charter school system in the nation to have an IB World School at every one of our campuses.
Well, as I told you, we had an amazing team panelists on the stage today, and we're going to be talking about, really growing your model and making sure that you replicate it and that you do it with fidelity. That's a key word that we're going to talk about today, ensuring that it's done with fidelity. And so with that being said, I'm interested to know more about this 9,000 student population. And that must be a very arduous task to ensure that every student consistently learns and that you're building a team model that can be replicated over and over and over again. And so what type of work goes into that? What kind of training to ensure that your program continues to remain at an optimal level and that it's working with fidelity?
Sure. So, one of the things that I think was at the core of our expansion concept was that we were not going to change who we were, and we were not going to lower our standards just because we went into an area where maybe that had been done before. So we were very successful in our first campus. We had high expectations of the families of the students and of our team. And as we began looking at other areas to expand, the plan was to keep many of the same programs and processes in place and not expect less from families, even if we were going into areas where parent involvement was typically lower than our initial campus. We wanted to hold everybody to the same standard and bring them up to where we were, because they deserve the same type of education that every other community has. And so we really made that the core of our plan to move forward and to replicate the things that we were already doing that we knew were working.
Wow, there's a lot of folks in the audience today, and they're sitting there saying 9,000 people. Wow, how do you get there? And so what do you say to them? They have this great, unique model. And so how can they go from one school to replicating to the second school? What does that look like, just that little process?
Get a lot of sleep now, because once you start, it is a lot of work. For us, it starts with seeing that you're being successful, seeing that there's a demand of your existing school that exceeds your capacity, right? So that really is what convinced us that it was okay to expand. That was always the plan. We always got into this with the idea that we were going to try to serve more than one community. But until you open up those doors the first time, until those families start coming, you don't really know if what you're selling is going to interest them. So it started with big wait lists, big demand, big interest, putting out feelers into the community about the openness and the need, and doing a lot of research, a lot of market research on the density and the need and the success or failures of the other schools in the communities you're looking at, to try to figure out where was the next place to put, the next Franklin, to make sure that it was, that it could be supported, right? We didn't want to find ourselves with a big, beautiful building and a bunch of excited staff, and then nobody came. So it was a lot of work in prepping and looking at the demographics and the density in particular to make sure that there was that need.
I'm excited. We're on the stage now. I have a person from Idaho. I know there's a lot of folks never knew that there were charter schools in Idaho. I didn't know that. And so I thought I was a real expert, which is why we have the attorney up here as well to kind of talk about some things. But, talk about some of the charter school, the movement in Idaho, and some of the, the great things you've been able to do and some of the challenges that you're faced in a rural area.
We were started through, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Bloom. It's worth Googling if you're not. But Bloom is basically our charter incubator in Idaho, and they're funded by the J.A. and Catherine Albertson Family Foundation, who made the initiative years ago to get 20,000 seats in 10 years for charter students in Idaho. And I think we're on year 8 or 9, and we're right pushing that 20,000 seat mark. The incredible thing is I've got 4 other colleagues in Idaho that are growing and expanding schools as well. So there's kind of a team of us that are blocking and tackling for each other, if you will, to get everything right, to get the legislature on the right path, to, have the laws match up where we need them, and then to line up all the philanthropy that we need so that we can all grow. And it's everything from classical academies to our at-risk model. So we see the entire spectrum, and we're trying to offer that throughout the communities in Idaho. So part of our biggest thing with being able to grow and replicate in Idaho is just we have incredible teams that all work together. Oftentimes we see, different models kind of battle it out. We're not like that in Idaho. We all work together to really create that landscape of getting those 20,000 seats in the 10 years.
So would you say that the replication process is pretty simple in Idaho, or you have a lot of fanfare behind it?
I don't know if simple is the word. It's anytime you're replicating anything, anytime you're creating anything, it's a complex world. But what we have is the support to make it much easier. Sometimes I feel a little spoiled that way, but there was a lot of schools and a lot of incubators, and then they narrowed it down and selected who they wanted to replicate, essentially, like who were the leaders and the innovators that could go forward and come into new communities and do the things that they needed to make them line up to replicate. So when I built my first school, my intention fully build it, be my own boss for 10 years, retire, call it good. That's all I was going to do, right? Well, then this deeper moral purpose of these long wait lists and these other communities going, no, you got to do that for us, slapped me in the face pretty hard and said, you can't be selfish, go out and do it. And so that's how we ended up in the replication world and building more schools.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. I think a lot of charter leaders will get into the movement thinking that they're going to do exactly the same, and then they find that their heart gets into it, the community gets into it, and they're like, okay, I guess I'll do another 5 years. Then that turns to 10 and 20 as we move forward. But I'm sure the audience is wondering, like, why do we have an attorney on the stage, right? And it's important because a lot of charter leaders don't realize the value of having a solid attorney, because typically the attorney is really connected with the board, and, the board of trustees really are the ones that have that counsel that sits there. But talk about why it's important to have a great attorney, not just a good one, but a great one, because you're going to need it, right? And why is it good to have a great attorney that's connected with this? And as you look at replication, why you need to include an attorney in that conversation?
Certainly. Well, just listening to what Scott and Monica just said, you talked about changes in legislation. Well, how did you know that the legislation needed to be changed? You all had a conversation about what you wanted to do, and were there barriers? The law didn't fit that vision. And so you probably worked with lawyers and lobbyists, right? And talked about how could the law change. And the other important thing is they may also have said, well, I know what you want to do, but if we do it this way, then this might be the consequence, right? And that's another thing that lawyers can help with. But a lawyer who knows the education law space and
Yeah,
the
so
lawyer,
you just can't go get like a Perry Mason, right? You got to get someone.
No.
Okay.
I've never worn the seersucker suit. But they don't have to be all things, right? And so there could be a legal team who works with the lobbyist, who works with the general counsel for the school. So it can be a group as well, but then also the discussion with replication of what is the legal structure, and does that it shouldn't drive your conversation, but it should be part of your conversation. So involving the lawyer early on and being part of the planning is important.
There's so many different paths when you're replicating, and the legal structure of your entity is certainly one that, for most people, is an afterthought, right? They just know we're doing a great job. We've got this great mission. We're educating kids. Let's do it again. But setting up your organization in the correct path to be successful, to be compliant with all the complicated regulations and laws that educators have, it's an invaluable concept to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody who knows and who's done it. Full disclosure, Melissa's firm is currently representing us in many areas. And so her and her team, I'm a little bit biased because I call them all the time for advice and suggestions to make sure.
Do
that
they
we're
charge
doing
you
the right
every time you call? By the minute.
By the minute. I think we have a great partnership.
You know, it's important that the folks in here, you know, you bring up a great point, right? That, you know, people have these great ideas and this love for kids, but they forget about the legal parts of it. I want to get into this thing of replication because I love children. What's the downside to that?
I mean, the downside is when oftentimes when you're the founder and you start a school and you think everybody thinks like you do, and then when you start to replicate, you quickly learn people don't think like you do. And so you can at times see your vision spiraling out of control. And when I came into the work, you talk about replication. Are you going to be a loose model? Are you going to be a tight model? Are you going to be somewhere in between? What's that going to look like? And where I started and where I am now are two totally different places because of a lot of hard lessons learned. So my advice is when you replicate, get as tight as you can because people don't think like you think, especially when you're on the innovation side. And so if you want to see your model through, you've really got to do that. And I am I'm not wired that way at all. I've spent 12 straight months codifying my model, and that's been our only mission for the last year. So when we launch number 4, 5, 6, however many we end up doing, it's really dialed in and ready to go and a good platform for success. If you replicate and you stay sloppy, you're not going to run good schools.
Wow, that is an amazing point. Every day I'm talking with my team about how folks aren't thinking the way that you are. And sometimes they like to see you spinning. Because if you spin a lot, you can't see a lot, right? And so I think that's just a great way of putting it. As we look at this, do you think that there are some organizations that, you know, really they're so great, they're premier as a single site or they can replicate once that they don't need multiple? Is there a stop? Like we're going to do 4 schools and then we're done? Like the cake, is there a number that you limit yourself or should it just be an endless idea?
Yeah, we have 6 charters and I'm sitting on a panel about replication, but we're nowhere near as large as some of these other nationwide entities that have hundreds of charter schools. It's a different model, it's a different concept. For us, I think our success has been really driven in the idea that we are a type model and we do a lot of work of standardization and of replicating who we are at each campus, and it's a lot of hands-on work. So for us, I think there is a cap on how far we could potentially grow because our success has been being able to be hands-on. So if we were to look to go into another state, for instance, I would want to be building the team here and taking folks from here and moving it there because we need the hands-on, right? I can't just go to Texas and open a Franklin Academy and expect it to be anything like what our schools here at Florida are because we wouldn't have that same ability and that same collaboration that we do with our 6 schools.
What advice would you give anyone in here that's like, I'm going to start this application tomorrow? How would they start to look at the team or would they go in a community? Would they get a community person? Where would they start first with this replication? So we've been open now 10 years. I want to make sure we go into another school district. And now I want to replicate our model. Where should I start first?
First, just disclaimer, I built 4 schools in 5 years. So I'm a little rogue. With that, what we've done.
Wait. I have to stop you.
Okay.
We need to know a little bit more about that.
Okay.
And how 5, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, tell us about that first.
I'm right, Wes? We're 4 schools, 5 years. Maybe it's 6, but it's tight. So our 4th school will open in August, and we started in 2019. So we're right there. But it just goes back to the need and the want in Idaho, and other communities came and said, we want this, we need this, we want this, we need this. And so our next 2 schools are actually district authorized schools, which is very rare in Idaho for a district to reach out and say, we can't reach this demographic of kids. Can you please come help us? And so now we've spun into this next world where we've proven ourselves in the work that we do in the communities. And we've done a really, I would say, good job of adding value to the community, where now the community is actually coming to us. We're not going into communities, but to do that and to replicate well, I have to find somebody within that community that's very community minded, very attached to industry, very attached to education, and can pull all the stakeholders together to do it well. So our step 1 in replication is finding the right talent and the right leader within the community.
Listen, as we go back into some of these contracts and understanding an attorney firm, you mentioned having a team of individuals.
Yes.
Can you kind of talk to folks about what's needed? Like, there's not one attorney that does it all. There's a group of them that's needed to make the replication work with Fidelity. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Certainly. And they don't have to be in the same firm, but I happen to have the benefit of having multiple attorneys in my firm, and we all practice education law, but we've all fallen into sub-specialties into education law. So we may have a surface knowledge of a lot of things because education law is so broad. But for instance, there's one person in our firm he's the Title IX guy. And when we have a Title IX question or we have a family law question, we walk down the hall and we speak to him. My husband and law partner, he was a prosecutor. If the FBI is investigating someone at my school, I'm going to go talk to him. And the value of that is that when I'm speaking to the school, when they're feeling the emotion of something that they don't understand or is dramatic, I don't want to telegraph that back to them because I'm feeling it too. For instance, if it's criminal or family, some of these things are very dramatic. But if I have someone I can turn to, now I'm more effective for that client. And we can help as a team. It doesn't have to be just one lawyer.
So it sounds like it's benefits to really engaging with a law firm that has different divisions that you can work through, and that way there's synergy that works. So you're not going across the street to talk to the tax lawyer and then coming back across the block to get the special education, because you're going to need all of them, right? And so
you are, but I'll tell you, the tax lawyers, I'm looking at the finance people out here, the tax lawyers have their role too,
Yes.
But I'm not going to hire a tax lawyer for my firm.
So, we have discussed a lot around, replication and excitement about replication and what it means to communities and how it's going to affect children. What are some of the challenges that could actually impact the community by putting replicating, or some of the challenges that's going to be perceived by those who are against school choice? Like, what kind of challenges with folks who are wanting to do this? What can they face? Like, we have a great idea, and you feel like everyone's going to be excited about it the same way you are. What are some of the challenges that you can see that they can expect going into a new community?
Yeah, the obvious answer is, the teachers and the school district in the area that you're moving into, right? So there's a natural, I don't like to say competition because we feel like we're part of the solution. We're not competing, but we're often seen as the competition. So that's right away. As soon as you announce that you're going to put a school that you're looking to put your charter in a certain school district, people in that district, teachers in that area, many times are instantly against you. Within the community, the biggest challenge we have fairly large schools, right? So most of my schools are about 1,340 students. The biggest complaint that we get from the communities before we open our school is not that they don't like what textbook we're choosing. It's not that they don't like one of the programs in our school. It's traffic.
How did I know you were going to say
Right?
that? Yeah.
I had at a city commission meeting after one of our schools was approved, I had this nice young lady walk over to me, came up, and I thought she was going to say something wonderful about how we're doing all this for children. And instead she put her cane down, turned her thumbs down and said, "Boo, you ruined my life." So she was never going to be a fan. That was clear. But so it's you're going to face challenges from the community. You're going to face challenges from people in the education space. And right, oftentimes in education, it's adults fighting over money. So unfortunately, anyone who has a stake in the game that's going to find their pie being cut a little bit smaller is a potential person that you're going to have to deal with.
As we look at some of the challenges that will come in, and that's, you have to know these different things. So when you try to replicate, you're prepared for it. So when you look at the political landscape, right, is that a part of getting to know the politics in the community, the council person, the ANC, well, in the District of Columbia, it's the ANC, but the community leader that actually runs the communities, is that important to ensure that you build a solid relationship prior to putting that institution in their community?
Yeah, I can address that. Number one, yes, it's very important. I'll give you a few prime examples. Not my school, but another school that, one of my colleagues in Idaho is building. For whatever reason, some families going to that school rubbed families going to the traditional school a little bit wrong. And it's a small town, so it got really, really competitive, honestly. And the other families happened to be on the city council. So then we ended up with almost this political warfare on whether or not we could expand in these certain areas and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately the charter school ended up losing because they were on the wrong side of the people that were in the city council, right? So, and it's all going to work out. They're going to build down the road in another community. All the same students are still going to go there, and it's going to be great for kids. So, but it caused a lot of money, a lot of headache. And then that's another reason that you have to have really good attorneys on your side, because are people doing stuff because they're vindictive, or are people going to doing stuff because it's right for kids? And you battle that kind of thinking a lot. So, and then it's other just little things. Like if you are really in well with your communities, and that's why we really emphasize the local leaders. We had a building that didn't get built on time, and we were a couple months late. We had to start it in a church and then move the students over, which, by the way, is very, very complex with the career tech ed program. And the one community wouldn't even let us in to build furniture, right? So then all of a sudden, you finally get access to the building. It's the middle of September, and you have to spend 3 weekends or whatever it is building furniture before you can even get the kids in there and doing those types of things. But the communities you can get in the door, and you're really good with the councils, with the fire chiefs, you name it. You become best friends with everybody if you can, because they'll do you a favor if it's what's best for kids, if you get on the same page with them. And so, we're looking at some delayed electrical panels on our newest project in Idaho Falls. I wised up, started building sooner, even though people say wait till September, October, and capitalize interest and all these fancy words these finance guys use. You will have a lot less gray hair if you just push back and say, no, we're going to start this thing in June or July in case anything goes wrong. But, we have the backup now. But our newest campus we're doing, because the leader there did such a nice job building those relationships, they're like, no problem. We'll get you in to build all the furniture and everything before you have a certificate of occupancy. So it's all of those levels. The better relationships you can have, difference maker.
Easier to process.
Yeah,
absolutely.
everything.
You guys have said a lot of amazing things today. How do you make this replication work? Folks in here are thinking about how to work and replicate with Fidelity. You're going to go to a different district. You're going to expand, maybe in the same state, maybe in the same city. Understanding how funding can you transfer funding over? Are you able to use one budget to open another school? Are you able to do that? Or will you have to call the attorney because somebody's coming after you? It's important to talk about funding and what that model. So can we take a few moments to talk about how to stabilize your funding and ensure that your finances are great before you make this move to replicate, so ensure that dream can last forever?
Yeah, events like this, and when you're here and you see that there's finance folks that are coming to charter events, this is great, because when we first started, there weren't people knowledgeable in the charter industry, right? When you started looking for money to build a building, and you had to start the conversation with, okay, let me tell you what a charter school is. Okay, no, we are a public school. Those days were way harder. So there's a lot more opportunity now. There's people that are in the industry that are specializing in the charter world. And so that is a great benefit if you're looking to start expanding now, that there's opportunities that will match what you're looking to do. You want to make those connections. You know, the bankers always cringe when I tell people this, but you've got to start your plan to move when it's right for you, not necessarily when the market says this is the right time, right? So you may be facing some competing pressures that, you know, these are when we're going to get the good rates. We got to start doing it right now versus, well, I'm not certain that I've identified the right location or that I've really made those business connections with the people in the community. And so you've got to time it in a way that works for both you and for the market. Obviously, you don't want to jump at a time when interest rates are too high and you can't afford the building. You know, we've always say that we're making a 20-year commitment. We could have, you know, we could do all the bells and whistles. We could make it the most amazing building and build it the best school and go bankrupt in a year. But man, that'll be a great year. That's not our plan. We're looking for the 20 years. We're looking to be here for a long term. So you've got to balance out what you can live with and what you can afford and make sure that that all comes together. Because this is not, you should not be doing a flash in the pan, right? You should be looking to make an impact in your community and make it for the next couple of decades.
The only thing I would probably add to that is we're spoiled in Idaho. The foundation puts a lot of money in with Building Hope, and we're able to recycle that. And every time I refinance a building, it frees up the capital so I can build another building. So we have a pretty good system for building buildings. But that being said, my first building, construction, not all in costs, was $8 million. This building I'm building right now is $12 million. So in 5-6 years, we've seen that increase like tenfold almost. And so you're always trying to balance. As you know, just like when you build your first one, the more I put into facilities, the less I can put into people and programming. And so one thing that's been really key for us is recycle your plans. You know, we've got a footprint, we use it, we adapt it to the new cities measures and all those things. That's been a big deal. And then the second one is once you find a stable team, keep the team. Because like you said, you don't have to re-explain what you're doing. They know you don't have money. I mean, we work with these big general contractors, and Starbucks probably pays them way more per square foot than Elevate ever can or will. But find the mission-aligned, deeper moral purpose people that are aligned with your vision, and they will help you cut it, but still deliver quality products when doing facilities. So that's been a really big thing for us. And then on the money side too, where the attorneys are super helpful, we have to start every campus as its own LEA. So basically, like, there's no book, there's no record, there's nothing when I start a campus. Right now I'm running I have 5 501c3s. I have a foundation on top of that. It's all done by one governing board, but it's all individual entities. And so to map that out and figure that out, I needed strong work from our attorneys. I mean, that was a very common, attorneys, auditors, you name it, we used them to get that program developed. Now Idaho's changed the laws and we can merge them. I don't know what that's going to look like. That goes in effect July 1. I haven't scratched that surface, but that's a big deal from the financing side.
I appreciate that conversation about legal entities, because when finances get involved, you have this clash between folks in the finance world who are generally from the for-profit or entrepreneurial world, and then you have charters, which are nonprofit and public. And there is a clash. And I find that a lot of our clients get advice from the finance folks saying, you need to separate into multiple legal entities. You need to do this or that. And what I tell them is, first of all, you need to understand what it is and all the finances. You're capable of understanding it and you need to, right? It's not blah, blah. It's fine. If you don't understand it, ask the question. That's what you would tell your students. So do that. But also, before deciding on the structure on the legal structure, what's the purpose? What are you trying to accomplish? How does that fit in with replication? Are you looking for control, consistency, people? What is it? And let that drive the design of the legal structure along with considerations for the financing. So over and over again, I see this being, or they end up with an overly complex legal structure that then they don't know how to manage, and they don't follow it, Or later on, leadership changes and they all wonder, why did we do that? And then they spend money unwinding a complex legal structure.
And we all know that finances is the quickest way to close. Thank you guys for attending the Impact Summit on Growth and Replication. Hope you guys will continue to have that energy and move schools forward. Thank you for a great time.